Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, The Eclectic Reader. So today I would like to talk about a book that I recently finished and that I really loved. The Golem and the Jinni by Helene Wecker. So I'm covering my library sticker with this sticky note. This is a book that I actually started in January, but I finally finished it at the beginning of April. And that's not because I wasn't enjoying this book. As I said, this was a wonderful read and it will probably be one of my favorite reads of 2022. But I decided to put this book aside for a month and a half while I was reading other books. And then I finally came back to it and finished it. It is a very lyrical historical fantasy following two magical creatures. At the start of the novel, we're introduced to the first magical creature, which is a golem, a creature of clay. This man, he is a rabbi, he asks a magician to create a woman for him out of clay who will obey all of his wishes. This magician does create the golem, but on their way to New York City, the golem's master dies suddenly, and so now she's all on her own in a new country, and on top of that, she has to learn how to behave as a human and how to disregard the thoughts of all of the other people around her. Because now that she no longer has a master, she feels like everyone around her is her master and that she needs to satisfy the desires of all the people around her. A rabbi in New York City finds her and takes her in and trains her so that she can behave as any other human woman in the city. She lives in this Jewish community in New York City, and she becomes this really excellent baker and tailor and goes by the name of Chava. So that's our first creature. The second creature we'll meet later, and his name is Ahmad. He is a Jinni. Jinni was actually alive hundreds of years before the beginning of the story. So this story takes place at the turn of the 20th century. But unfortunately, Ahmad was imprisoned by a wizard in a kettle. And this kettle ended up in New York City in the hands of a woman, and the kettle had some damage. So this woman took the kettle into a tinsmith's shop to get it repaired. And while the tinsmith is repairing the kettle, the Jinni is released from the kettle and he is in human form, because what the wizard had done was trap him in human form and then trap this human Jinni in a kettle. So now he has been released after hundreds of years of being in this kettle, and again, he doesn't know how to behave like a human man, and also he's used to being very free because the Jinnis are not really bound by any laws. So he doesn't want to obey any of the human laws either. So he's like the complete opposite of the golem in many ways. Whereas the golem was created to obey other people, the Jinni is not used to obeying anybody and doesn't want to obey anybody. They become friends in a sort of way, and we get to follow their friendship and development throughout this novel. This is a really interesting look at immigration as well, because this book really follows three different immigrant communities: Byzantine Catholic, Muslim, as well as Jewish, in New York City at the turn of the 20th century, looking at what immigration was like, where these immigrants would be living. But these creatures, the Golem and the Jinni, are exceptionally foreign because not only do they come from another country, but they're not human and they have to try to be as human. So this is a beautiful meditation and exploration of immigration. But also it asks us, how would we behave if we had the powers that these creatures had? How would we feel being outside of the human population because we have these exceptional talents? I really love this book. It is very lyrical. It is actually quite long. It is over 500 pages, and there is a sequel which I certainly will be reading. There are certainly some villains in this novel, and also sometimes the creatures themselves are villains in their own way. I definitely preferred Chava to Ahmad, maybe because Chava has this sense of responsibility that Ahmad does not, and some of the things that Ahmad does we would definitely frown upon. Definitely, if you've been seeing booktubers talking about this in the past, the hype is totally justified. It is a beautiful book. Even if you're not really into fantasy, I think you will really love this story. But if you are into fantasy, I definitely recommend it. This is a fantasy novel, but it also fits within the literary fiction genre in a certain way as well. So this was a 5-star read. Please let me know if you read The Golem and the Jinni and what you thought. Thank you everybody for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.